everybody knew who grew up over here about Windsor Park. It just became a neighborhood that was just kind of dying out. But I just knew that if it had been another community and they had not been Black, they would have fixed those houses. The fact that they've been left to just die out rather than someone stepping in to help them.
It's just not right. I'm important, we're important, we paid our fair share, we paid our taxes, and we deserve to be treated better.
Fix up Windsor Park, clean up these vacant lots that the city owns, make it look like a livable community.
I wasn't thinking about it in terms of a justice issue. I was just thinking, why do they live in this house? And it's like a dead zone.
It's a very interesting story. Windsor Park was built in the early 1960s when segregation had not ended in southern Nevada.
No one should have to live as they've lived over the past few decades, and I hope we can find a solution for them.
The residents of Windsor Park all came here for the same reasons. For a future, their future, one they could build with their own hands. Yet below all the glittering lights, revolutionary singers, and high rollers, Las Vegas was just another city in America plagued with systemic racism.
And you're talking about the 1960s? It was almost completely segregated. African Americans at the time worked in the back of the house of casinos, doing maid work, porter's work, linen rooms, that kind of work. The dirtiest jobs went to African Americans, but they were jobs.
Subpar jobs also led to subpar housing options for African Americans.
So redlining is a practice that banks and lending institutions actually draw a red line around communities in a city that they don't want to loan money into. The West Side community, and I named the community because at that time that's the only place that African Americans could actually live here in the city.
Windsor Park was one of the first all-Black housing communities built on the historic west side of North Las Vegas. It was an important step in giving African Americans a place in society.
Homes are the way that you get established. It is the way you build wealth. It is the way you create community. Home ownership is the underlying stabilizing force in our country. They tell everybody to become a homeowner. That is the American way.
My name is Annie L. Walker, and I'm a resident of Windsor Park. And I've been living in Windsor Park for 50 plus years.
My name is Nancy Johnson, and I'm 65 years old, and I moved here in 1976. My daughter was around 2 months old when I moved here, and I was very excited with a new home, with a new baby.
My dad was stationed at Nellis, and things were a little rough in my marriage, and so he came and got me and my three of my older children, and we have been here ever since, and have multiplied since then.
Oh, the neighborhood was fantastic. It was really nice. Everybody was so friendly. We all had Easter egg hunts with all the children. They would ride up and down the street with bicycles.
Then, 20 years later, something strange happened.
It's called subsidence. The houses were built in an area where there are geological faults. So imagine the ground has cracks in it, a fault. When the groundwater is drawn out, the ground sinks, but near the faults, parts of the ground sink more than other parts. So if your house is on top or near one of those cracks, your house cracks, pipes crack, roads crack. So it became very apparent to people who lived in Windsor Park in the 1980s, and they approached the city of North Las Vegas and said, our houses are cracking, we have cracks in the road, what can you do for us?
The Department of Housing and Urban Development conducted a study and estimated that between $12 and $14 million was needed to relocate the residents. But in 1991, the money for Windsor Park was reduced from $12 million to $5 million, with officials believing that This amount, quote, would allow Windsor Park families to reestablish their living conditions to the standard that once existed in Windsor Park, unquote. As of 2021, this has not been proven true. The battle over Windsor Park stretched out over 3 phases.
I came here about 4 years ago, and I never knew nothing about them vacant lots till later. Or she started telling me about, well, these used to be houses.
I stayed here because I didn't want to move. This is my home. I didn't want to start all over paying a mortgage. I had a little girl. The community was just dreaming about how it used to be when we first moved here. We were all happy until they started tearing down these homes.
The feelings of the residents began to change. Feelings of neglect. Feelings of despair. But the 1991 resolution to stop them from building or repairing their homes didn't make them feel surprised in the least.
We used to go to council meeting, complain about different things, the sewage and everything else. And we're gonna fix it, you know, it's always an excuse.
The city can help us if they choose to help us. They weren't supposed to tear down the homes in the first place. They were supposed to move the people out, fix up the property, and move them back in.
We want Windsor Park to be built up like it was 40 years ago. When my fiance first moved here, like she said, Windsor Park was very nice.
You know how I come to the conclusion they said all of that to shut my mouth up. That's the way I took it, because they haven't done anything. They haven't done anything.
The situation came to a roadblock. No progress was made, and people were just sort of left in their houses, and I think they feel as if they've been abandoned.
Even after decades of unfair treatment by their government and by officials, the residents of Windsor Park continue to fight. Because a home is worth protecting.
I'm Senator Dina Neal. I grew up in North Las Vegas. I've lived in North Las Vegas my whole entire life. I got involved in politics because my dad was in politics. He was in the state senate for 32 years. And I learned about Windsor Park through him. I remember my friend that lived down the way. Their whole front of the house started to sink, and the sidewalk in front completely became cracked. If you didn't know Windsor and you came over here, you'd be like, who stays over here? And how can you even possibly live here? There's like this house, vacant lot, vacant lot, vacant lot. This house looks like it's getting ready to fall apart. How did they even get to the state and condition? And why would a government leave them in that condition? It then begs the question for you to say, well, who has the responsibility to fix it? They did. If you listen to the city of North Las Vegas, they didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to pay to fix it. These residents were too expensive for them. And in my mind, I was just like, justice is not expensive. Because if it was somebody else, you would have done right by them, but for some reason you don't have any interest in doing right by these families. The Windsor Park residents, we were on the same page in that I really wanted to fight for them, but knowing the city and their behavior and how they just kind of responded to them, and I felt like they were disrespected, I needed someone else.
When I first met her at the law school, she had a stack of papers, I'd say about a foot high, detailing, again, the results of her research about Windsor Park. She wanted the law school to help tell the story of the residents and to see if we could find, either a legal or business remedy for them. In my perfect world, what I hope happens for the residents of Windsor Park is that we can find a developer who's interested in the commercial opportunities that are nearby. So a developer that can take advantage of an opportunity zone might also then be able to provide residential benefits for the residents in terms of either new homes or helping to rehabilitate the existing homes.
If we can lift it up in the national space and get attention, I think we can get other bedfellows to jump in this fight with us and talk about why would you leave this community in this condition for this long and not say a word.
I love my community. I love my neighbors. My prayer that night is for my whole entire Windsor Park. It was founded on good intention, and it was to help people, give them an opportunity to own their own home. So our last days could be good days, to just enjoy it and not be burdened because of the city of North Las Vegas.
We need public and private partners to rehabilitate Windsor Park, including developers, lawyers, geologists and engineers, federal, state, local funding officials and philanthropists, government relations experts, and student advocates.